Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely astonishing 400-year historical mystery that completely reshapes how we understand the map of South Asia. You know, we so often look at history as this series of rapid conquests and instant overnight changes. But today, we're exploring a story of incredible resistance, wild geographic defiance, and a profound cultural transformation that literally took nearly a millennium to unfold. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the map's hidden past, move into why Islam was delayed, look at the forgotten Shahi kings, cover 4 centuries of resistance, and finally, the slow birth of identity. Let's jump right into Section 1, the map's hidden past, a historical mystery. So what do you actually see when you picture the modern map of South Asia? Think about those fixed borders and the deeply rooted religious identities we see today. We've got Muslims in Pakistan and Afghanistan, Hindus in India, identities that often feel like arch-rivals set in stone, right? It feels so permanent. We naturally kind of assume it's always been this way, or maybe that these current lines were drawn swiftly and decisively. But history tells a wildly different story. If we look back to around 700 to 900 CE, the ancestors of today's Pashtuns and Punjabis in places like Afghanistan and northwestern Pakistan absolutely weren't Muslim. They were fiercely Buddhist, Hindu, and Zoroastrian. They were out there building massive monasteries and temples, minting coins stamped with horsemen, and writing in Sanskrit. It is just a completely different world hiding right beneath the maps we use today. Moving on to Section 2, why Islam was delayed, stalling an empire. The popular imagination usually assumes that early Islamic conquest was just breathtakingly fast. And honestly, in a lot of places, it was. Early Arab armies swept right across Persia, the Levant, and North Africa within a single century of the Prophet Muhammad's death. But their momentum came to a violent, abrupt halt in the Hindu Kush. They stalled at the gates of Afghanistan. And not just for a decade or two, but for an astonishing 400 years. Now, this incredible delay was definitely no accident. It was basically a perfect storm of 4 major factors. First up, culture. There was a millennial Iranian civilizational identity rooted in 1,000 years of Persian influence, and that wasn't just going to vanish overnight. Second, geography. Those massive, unforgiving Hindu Kush mountains acted as a literal natural fortress. Third, you had some seriously fierce indigenous resistance. And fourth, the Arab caliphates ended up paralyzed by their own internal civil wars, which completely halted their push east. Which brings us to Section 3, the forgotten Shahi kings manning the wall. So who were the people actually manning that wall? 2 main dynasties led this resistance. First, we have the Turco-Shahis. They were of Central Asian descent, ruled from Kabul as Buddhists, and they're the ones who fought off the very first Arab raids. Then they were succeeded by the Hindu Shahis, a Brahmin dynasty ruling from Waihind. Worshipping Shiva and Vishnu, they fiercely held out against Islamic empires for centuries, maintaining this incredible splendor while acting as the ultimate shield for the entire region. But of course, kings don't fight alone. The historical sources mention these fierce Turkish knights, or the Kalaj, who were repelling raids as early as 664 CE. And here is an amazing twist of history. These unconverted mountain fighters are the direct ancestors of today's Ghilzai Pashtun tribes. They were untamed, absolutely brilliant at mountain warfare, and frankly, a total nightmare for invaders. All right, Section 4, 4 centuries of resistance, the agonizing push. Just think about the sheer scale of time we're dealing with here. Back in 644 CE, the famous Chinese pilgrim Huan Sung visits Gandhara and notes absolutely zero Muslim presence, nothing. It takes over 200 years until 870 CE for the Iranian Safavids to capture Kabul, and then it takes all the way until 1021 CE before the conqueror Mahmud of Ghazni finally breaks the back of the Hindu Shahis. It's a tragic, geographic retreat for these ancient kings. First, they lose Kabul, but instead of surrendering, the Hindu Shahis retreat eastward, shifting their capital down to Waihind near the Indus River. Finally, Mahmud of Ghazni launches decades of grinding, repeated campaigns right into Gandhara until the dynasty is driven to total extinction in 1021 CE. It was just an incredibly slow, agonizing push that spanned generations. What's truly remarkable about all of this is how their enemies viewed them. Even their foes profoundly respected them. Just listen to this striking epitaph by the famous Muslim chronicler al-Biruni. He wrote, "This Hindu Shaya dynasty is now extinct.
We must say that in all their grandeur, they never slackened in the ardent desire of doing that which is good and right, that they were men of noble sentiment and noble bearing. I mean, praising the noble sentiment of the very Hindu kings that your own patron had just defeated, that really speaks volumes about the awe these resistors inspired.
Let's head into our final chapter, Section 5, The Slow Birth of Identity, A New World Born. 1,000 years. That is roughly how long the entire journey took, going from the chanting Buddhist monks of ancient Gandhara all the way to the fully formed Muslim Pashtun tribes recorded by the Emperor Babur in the 16th century. History is rarely an overnight flip of a switch. It is a long, slow burn. And it's vital to remember that military defeat absolutely did not equal instant religious conversion for the people living there. It was a slow, incredibly messy, and highly pragmatic process. Tribes would convert to secure political alliances, or honestly, just to get out of paying taxes. Sometimes they converted and then reverted right back to their old faiths the second the armies left. It was really about survival first, engaging in syncretic practices and keeping their ancient customs alive, just under a brand new name. But as the centuries ground on, that old world did slowly die, and a new one was born right there in those mountains. Buddhism vanished entirely from the lowlands. Hinduism retreated eastward across the Indus River. And in that vacuum, those fiercely independent mountain fighters slowly forged a shared identity. They solidified their shared language, Pashto, and their strict code of honor, Pashtunwali. So the ancient identity of this region wasn't simply erased by conquerors. It was deeply and gradually transformed by the people themselves, from the inside out. I want to leave you with a final provocative thought today. We started out by looking at a modern map that feels completely set in stone. But if the identities that feel so permanent today actually took 400 years of bloody resistance and 1,000 years of adaptation to form, well, how might they flow and change in the centuries to come? Identity is never truly fixed. It flows like a river over millennia. So, how much might the map of human identity surprise us next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this changes how you look at the world.